Hey, Casey.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going very well. Thank you. Let's see. We've got some people coming in. We're going to give everybody about 3 minutes past the hour just to get in, get settled, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, if you haven't already heard our spiel about Shoestring, our podcast, definitely invite you to check it out. We've got 9 episodes, I think now, and the topics range from email segmentation to social media tips to AI and texting, like how to use AI to improve your texting strategy. Essentially, the premise is we talk to small business owners and give them creative ideas for their top marketing challenges. So I invite you to check that out on Apple, Spotify, all the big platforms. Let's see.
Yeah, I highly suggest you do it, everyone. It's really one of the best business and marketing podcasts I've ever heard, and that I listen to a lot of them, and it's a really cool podcast.
And I didn't pay him to say that, so I appreciate that, Casey. Appreciate it. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody being here. Okay, here we go. So we are going to be talking today about the 2 channels that you need to win over customers. You can probably guess what those 2 channels are. We'll get into it in a minute. But first, I want to introduce myself. I'm Danny Henyon, if we haven't met yet. I'm a content marketing specialist here at Cinch, which is the parent company of Simple Texting. I know we have a good bit of Simple Texting customers here today. And then this is my friend Casey. I'll let you introduce yourself, Casey.
Yeah, I also work at Cinch. I work on some of Cinch's email brands, including MailJet, and I think there are probably a few MailJet customers on the call today as well.
Yep. And I just thought of something I didn't mention earlier. So if you have questions anytime throughout this class, there's a Q&A tab next to the chat. So just hit Q&A, enter your question. That'll give us a chance to check off ones that we've already answered and just to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. And feel free to drop anything in the chat at any time too. It's great to have discussions along the way. So if you've been to one of our classes before, we like to talk about, or we like to start off with, what does your business do? You can drop your answer in the chat, not in the Q&A, but in the chat. Just briefly, what does your business do, or what do you sell, or what's your industry? This will give us an opportunity to tailor the discussion based on who's here today. Let's see. See if we get any. Here we go. Insurance. Oh, 2 insurance. Okay. Insurance. Everybody hears from insurance businesses today. I love it. We've got churches and real estate, nursing, more insurance. This is amazing. All right. Lots of different industries here today. I see some names I recognize as well. So that's great. We appreciate you all being here. We'll go ahead and talk about, why are we here? Why are we even talking about these 2 channels that we're going to mention today? Honestly, you don't need me to tell you this, but there's so many different marketing channels out there. You probably hear on a daily basis somebody saying, you need to be on TikTok, or you really are missing out if you're not on Instagram or something like that. And who has the time to be on all of them? Who has the budget to be on all of them? So we're going to talk today about how to make the most of your time and your budget by being on the channels that matter the most. And so we're going to start out with, spoiler alert, email. Email is one of those channels. I'm going to let Casey take this and talk about why email is so important.
Yeah, so when you've got all these channels to choose from, and you've got to decide as a small business owner or a member of a small marketing team where to invest your time and resources, it's probably good to know which ones are going to work the best for you. We found a couple quotes from pretty well-known marketers and what they think you should invest in. This is Ann Handley. She is the writer. She is the author of a book called Everybody Writes, you may have heard of. It's a really popular marketing book, and she also founded Marketing Prof. She's a really well-known, respected digital marketer. marketer, and she thinks email is undervalued by most companies. She says it's the only place where people and not algorithms are in control. And what she means by that is on social media, you can post something, but only a small fraction of your following that you work to build is going to even see that. And the same goes for if you put a lot of time and energy into like search engine optimization. Google's still the one in control, but when you have a list of subscribers and contacts, then you have a little bit more control, and so do the people who you're reaching out to. And then here's what another top marketer had to say. This is Rand Fishkin. He's big in the SEO space, but he also does a lot on audience research and his new product, SparkToro. He says if you're not investing in email, you're almost certainly missing out. He says it's better to trade 1,000 new social followers for a single email subscriber. So that's how lopsided he thinks it is between email and social media. Now, that's a really two ringing endorsements for email, but the truth is you could say those same things that these two people said about email, about SMS marketing as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It goes for both. Let me see here. So we hear all the time, especially on the simple texting side, if you're a simple texting customer, or if you just use SMS, and it's okay if you don't use simple texting, but we hear often, I've tried email, it doesn't work. I was not getting any engagement. That's why I'm here, basically. But that varies in different reasons why. I know, Casey, you've got some data, right, for some of those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Email can be a tough cookie to crack. So at MailJet last year, we asked a whole bunch of people who are small business owners like you, as well as people in the email marketing space, what their biggest challenge was when it comes to email marketing. And by far, well, not by far, but one of the top challenges, the most popular challenge, was standing out in the inbox. It's tough to do because inboxes are crowded, and it also takes a lot of time and resources. And there are also concerns out there like there's so many channels. Do people even use email anymore? Doesn't everyone just use social, and my kids just DM each other on Instagram? Why should I be using email, right? So those are three challenges that people like you who are attending this call right now see with using email. But there are still some very good reasons to keep using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when we talk about these two channels, we're not telling you to pick one or the other. This is kind of a trick question here, which is better, SMS or email? Casey, I know you've got more data on why we're saying it's not an either or, right?
Correct. So our parent company, Cinch, conducted some really interesting research last year where they asked both businesses and U.S. consumers about their preferences for different channels, especially in different situations. So let's take a look at a few of those findings just to kind of paint a picture of what might work for you. So first, here's what U.S. businesses are using most. Cinch asked these businesses that they surveyed to pick all the channels that they use. You can see the two most popular channels are SMS and email, with like 92%, like 9 out of 10 businesses are using email to reach their customers, and more than 7 out of 10 businesses are using text messaging with SMS to try and reach their customers. SMS and MMS, you could probably combine those two as well in this case. But what about consumers? What do they think? So let's take a look at some transactional messages first. These are, if you're in the e-commerce space, these would be things like order confirmations, delivery notifications. It could also could potentially be things like appointment reminders or fraud notifications, things like that. So where do consumers prefer to get these types of messages? Again, you can see that in terms of individual channels, email and SMS tend to be the two most popular. And again, you can combine SMS and MMS in that those two text messaging channels get even closer to email in terms of what people prefer. In fact, throughout the results in Cinch's survey, when you combine email with SMS and MMS, you're going to get like 60 to 70% of those consumer preferences covered. Let's take a look at some marketing messages too, and where people prefer to get those types of campaigns. So with promotions, once you're an existing customer, email and SMS again. And with personalization, which is a little bit more of an advanced tactic, personalized recommendations, again, email and SMS. You'll see one of those bars is a little bit higher. That's where Cinch actually combined all of the different messaging channels that are available to you, including WhatsApp, Instagram direct messages, Facebook Messenger. So when you combine all those different messaging channels, they tend to pretty much tie email. But I think as a small business owner, you're going to need to choose where you can invest your time. That's what we're trying to get across to you. And what we want you to realize through these stats is that to cover your bases, the best way to do that is to use email and SMS. That's probably the two most important channels that should be in your communication strategy right now. And if you do that, you're going to have most of those consumer preferences covered. But there are some differences in performance between these two channels, right, Danny?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and we have a question here that's relevant to that. So messaging consists of what? SMS, MMS, WhatsApp, and other. So is that right? Those are all the channels that would be included in messaging?
Sure. Well, there are other what they would call over-the-top messaging channels, OTT channels they call them, such as like I mentioned Instagram DMs and Facebook Messenger. You can use some of those channels as well to reach customers. And there are other ones that are I'm not as familiar with them, but they may be more popular in international circles, like in Asia. But in the U.S., which I'm assuming that's where most of these folks on this call are from, it's going to be the other channels besides MMS and SMS, which are really the same channels, are going to be WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, and things like that.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah. And I mean, to that point, so we have some stats here. This is really not to show you that, oh, SMS is better than email or vice versa. This is to show both of these channels get opens, they get clicks, click-throughs, they get they get responses. And yes, SMS statistically has higher rates for all of these categories, but email is not zero, right? So if you combine these two, you're going to get a way bigger impact. Now, if you have to prioritize one or the other, we talked about limited resources and time earlier, then you're still going to win with either of these. But they both will work together to enhance the other one. And this little chart here can be a good thing to look at for your own strategy. So if you're tracking these metrics and you want to look and see, how do I stack up against this? These are just averages. But for instance, I talked to somebody recently who said that their email open rate was like 60%, which is incredible. And I'm like, please keep doing email. That's amazing. So this can help you kind of see where you fall.
And I would add to that, one good thing about email is those open rates at 20%. That I've heard that that stat has remained consistent for like the last 20 years. So it is a pretty reliable channel in terms of what you're going to get for engagement like that.
That's a really good point. It's Old Faithful kind of channel. So yeah, essentially what we're trying to say is both email and SMS are important channels. Now, if you're like, I have limited time and resources, I want to know which one I should use for what use cases, that's what we're going to talk about now. You can mix and match these. These are just general recommendations, but I've had some people ask, well, when do I send a text message or when do I send an email? SMS is great for, urgent alerts or like emergency alerts. If you have employees that you're texting, and any requests for more information, especially if you've already tried through email and they're not responding. If you have their number and you have permission to text them, that's a great way to get that information. If there's two-way conversations that you need to have, it's going to be a lot quicker to use SMS than to get responses through email. And high-value offers, if you really want a lot of eyes on those offers, SMS is going to be great. We go back to the 98% average open rates for SMS. So, and you can just think about even in your own life, everybody checks their text messages pretty much. So email sometimes is once a day. Some people check it more than once a day. Email is great for things like newsletters or, longer how-to guides, tutorials, things like that, and for general sales and promotions. So it still has a really great use case. I mentioned earlier the person that I talked to with 60% open rates, he sends a very long newsletter, but it's very in-depth and it's pretty much the only kind of resource like that his audience has. So it does very well for him. And then there's times when you might want to combine these two channels just to get more eyes on the message and to give your contacts a chance to interact with you in whatever channel they prefer. So for instance, with an event invite, if you wanted to maybe send out a teaser through email and say, this event is coming soon, mark your calendars. And then with SMS, you could say, registration's open, go get your tickets before they run out, basically, because that's a little more time sensitive. And I love, I've got some examples of this. So this first example from Mala, the brand, they're an eco-friendly candle company. And I actually got these in my own inbox. The first one is an email, the screenshot of an email. It says, coming soon, Mala's spring getaway. And this is just a teaser. It was a teaser for their new products this spring. Excuse me. And you could there's an interactive element here, like cast your vote, really getting people to engage and find out what those new products are going to be. And then a little bit later, I think like the next day or something, they sent out this text message. This text is it gives that feeling of like exclusivity. So it says, your VIP early access to Mola's spring getaway is here. And then they have a link in there and they basically say, you get access to this sale 2 hours before everybody else. So that's a really good way to show your most loyal followers or contacts that you care about them, that you want them to stay on your list. It's one thing to get them there. It's another thing to keep them there and keep them looking forward to every text that you send out. And then if you've been to one of our classes before, you know that I'm kind of obsessed with Postino Wine Cafe. I love their communications. They do an amazing job. So here on the left is an email that they sent out that I got. And it says Golden Hour Guide. So it's a guide to their catering, using catering for your end of summer party. And so it's like an infographic that brings you through, all these different ways that you can spruce up your end of summer party. And then a little bit later, I got a text message inviting me to their Labor Day, or to go to their restaurant for Labor Day. And then they gave me the menu to look at. So this is a good way to stay top of mind through two channels and really engage people in more than one way.
Those are two really great examples. I just wanted to say those are awesome examples of how email and SMS can work together.
Yeah, I love it. And I love seeing that too, because you don't always get to see like, when are they sending out these messages? Because I hear, oh, you should combine these channels, but what does that mean? So those are examples of what that could look like. And so now, if you are one of those people who says, email does not work for me, Casey's got some tips for us. He's got best practices for us to improve our open rates and our engagement through email.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do to improve your email marketing program. But if you are one of those people who struggled, we just wanted to give you some really high-level pieces of advice for how you can get the most out of email. So we're going to give you 4 big picture best practices here, and we'll kind of go through them kind of quickly. But if you visit MailJet, you can find a whole bunch of great tutorials and articles on our blog to learn more about email marketing. So the first best practice is we want to talk about optimizing for opens. We already saw SMS is kicking emails butt when it comes to opens. It's a lot harder to do because if you think about how you probably don't leave very many of your text messages unopened. Maybe a few of them, but most of them you're looking at. But if you look in your email inbox, you're probably leaving a lot of those unopened. I know I'm guilty of that too. So how are you going to get your subscribers to open what you're sending? It's all about the inbox display. And you might think of the subject line when we talk about inbox display, but there's even more to it than that. So when you want to optimize for opens, there's actually 3 things you need to think about. Your sender name, which you see highlighted there first, the subject line, which you're all probably familiar with, and there's also something called the preview text or pre-header text, which will be the little grayed out text right after the subject line in your inbox. This is from a Gmail inbox, so that's how it would look in Gmail. So you can use these 3 elements together to get more opens from your email marketing. Let's give you a few tips on how you might do that. Oh, first, I forgot. What you may be surprised to learn is that the sender name is actually the most important part of that equation. Now, that might be a big surprise to you, but it's all about trust and expectations. So there are tons and tons and tons of emails in your inbox promising promotions and deals and all this sort of stuff, but you're going to open the ones from the brands that you know and you love and you trust, right? So that's why thinking about your sender name and what you do in the customer experience and with your customers beforehand is going to lead to better email open rates. Something to keep in mind. So how to optimize for opens. Here's a few tips. With your subject lines, the main thing you want to do is generate curiosity so that people will want to open it up. You can also use FOMO, fear of missing out, and kind of create that sense of urgency, like they need to open it to find something out now or take an action right away. You also want to be teasing what's inside that email, right? And another good tip, if it works for your brand and your audience, you can use emojis in your subject line too, which helps them sort of stand out and makes them a little bit more visual. For that preview or pre-header text, you want to think about this as supporting or complementing your subject line. So sometimes it can be sort of a continuation of what you wrote in your subject line. Sometimes it'll give a little bit more of a hint of what is going to be in the email. But what you want to do is, because you only have so much space in the subject line, especially if it's being viewed on a mobile phone, you can kind of expand on what is in the subject line with your preview text and use it to encourage more opens. And finally, that sender name or the from name, you want it to be easily recognizable. What you don't want to have as like a no reply or do not reply thing in your sender name. People are going to be way less likely to open that. So if you have a recognizable name for your business, you can use that. And if there's a person in your business who's sort of the face of the company, or you want it to seem more personable, then try using like what's called a friendly from. So it could be Casey from MailJet, Casey at MailJet, instead of just Cinch MailJet or something like that. It adds a little bit of a human touch. So that's some basic advice on how to optimize for email opens. Next, let's talk about encouraging engagement. Now, open rates are part of email engagement, but the next step, usually after you get people to open an email, is to engage with it by clicking on what's in it, right? So what does some of MailJet's research show about that? Maybe not surprising. When people sign up for marketing emails, the number one reason they will click to visit your website is to take advantage of a deal or special offer. But that's if you aren't the kind of company that is constantly pitching deals and having promotions. What you want to do then is just encourage people to visit your website to learn more about something, a specific topic or an offer or something like that. So those are two of the biggest reasons that people are going to click through and engage with what you're sending, or they want to learn more about something, or they want to take advantage of a deal. So let's talk a little bit about some best practices to encourage engagement within the email. Besides what you're putting in the email, how you design the email is going to make a difference too. Because if people can't click, if they can't read, if it's a bad experience, they're going to be way less likely to engage. So it's really important that your emails are optimized for mobile viewing. Obviously, your text messages are very easy to optimize for mobile, but emails need to be responsive, which means they can change size depending on if someone's looking at them on their laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone, right? So you want to find an email service provider who can give you things like responsive email templates or ways to preview how your email is going to look on mobile, because 71.5% of consumers, MailJet found, are primarily viewing their email on a smartphone. Okay, tip number 2. Make sure the content and visuals are compelling. So you can do this more with email than you can with a basic SMS message. So take advantage of that to create something that's visually appealing, that uses copy to kind of engage your subscribers. Make sure you use headings, add a hero image at the top of your email to kind of just give it something big that pops, and make sure you deliver on the subject line, because you don't want to be having a clickbaity subject line that doesn't deliver on what you promised in the subject line. Number 3, do your emails include a call to action? Now, calls to action are basically what you want your subscribers to do after they're done consuming your email. When they read it, what do you want them to do next? So with emails, you can use buttons to make it more obvious. You can write creative call to action copy, but make sure that you have a call to action in your email. And it's usually a best practice to focus on just one call to action so you don't like overwhelm people with the decisions they have to make. Finally, for engagement, we suggest focusing on accessibility. And this is because there are a lot of people who struggle with reading emails visually because of color blindness, because maybe they're blind, maybe they just have a hard time seeing. And also mobility issues can cause problems. So if you want everyone on your list to be able to engage with what you're sending, you need to think about things like color contrast, the font size you're using, and making your buttons and links easy to click or tap on mobile. So those are all some things to think about in order to make that email experience more engaging. Cruising along here, the next thing you want to do is consistently deliver value. Now, that is probably the most important and toughest thing to do in email marketing, but it's worth doing. Here's what a very prominent marketer named Seth Godin had to say to one of our email brands about the future of email and what email marketers need to know. He said, either you're a spammer or you're not. And the test is easy. If you didn't send out your emails tomorrow, would people contact you to find out what happened? I don't know of many emails that I get where I would do that, but there are some where I get really great content or really great deals. If I didn't have them, I would want to know what happened. So that's your goal, to create emails that people will actually miss and actually look forward to. Seth Godin wrote a book called Permission Marketing back in 1999. It kind of laid the ground rules for email marketing. And he said that your emails should always have three components. They should be anticipated, meaning people expect them. They should be personal, meaning they relate to the person. And they should be relevant, meaning that they have timely content in them and that it relates to that person's life. So let's talk a little bit more about how to deliver value. One good idea is to have a set sending frequency. So maybe you've got weekly or monthly deals you want to let people know about. Do it on a regular basis so it becomes anticipated. Maybe you've got a series of tips you want to deliver to your customers or clients once a month. Newsletters are another great way to have sort of a set sending frequency so people are expecting to get your emails at a certain time. Another good tip is to use email to make life easier for people. So what can you deliver to them, to support their customer journey, to move them along the customer journey, to offer help and ideas and advice that kind of arrives at the perfect time in their inbox. By understanding your customer, you can really, really do that with email. Segmentation and personalization is a little bit more advanced, but if you've got the right tools, what you can do is create groups of customers and then make your emails more relevant to them. It could be by demographics like age and gender, or by purchase behaviors, or by some other preferences that you know. There are a lot of different ways to segment your list if you've got a big list. And you can also personalize your emails if you've got the right tools to make those emails relevant to very individual people versus groups. Something to think about as you build your email program. And then finally, you can use email for a little bit more of a two-way conversation. SMS is really good at this, but for email marketing, you've got to put in a little extra effort, but you can use it for surveys and to just kind of learn more about your customers, get them involved in it. That's a good way to make email more personal. What you don't want to do is use that no reply email address, as I mentioned before, because that is not very personal. All right, the last tip here is you want to avoid the spam filter. Obviously, landing in spam is not a good thing, right? People are not going to look for you there, so you want to stay out. Here's what MailJet found out about when emails land in spam. Everyone pretty much has a negative reaction to it. The best you can hope for is that people just won't care or it won't really bother them. But for some people, when your emails that they're expecting end up in spam, it's annoying and it's frustrating and they lose trust in you. So you want to do what you can to make sure that your emails make it to the inbox and don't land in the spam folder. How do you do that? Here's some basic tips. First of all, make sure you get permission first before you're emailing these people, because if you are not, then you literally are a spammer and you deserve to be going to the spam folder, right? Second, make sure that you respect your subscribers, because to the average person, an unsolicited email, they don't think of unsolicited emails as spam. They think of annoying emails as spam. So if you're sending too many emails or sending emails that don't mean anything to them, they're going to mark you as spam, which makes you more likely to end up in the spam folder for everyone else. So that's why you respect your customers and subscribers by not being annoying with email. Next, this is a technical one, but your domain and IP reputation affect how mailbox providers like Google, like Gmail, Apple Mail, Outlook, how they think they should filter your email. Should they go to the inbox, or does this deserve to go to spam? For most of you on this call, you don't have a ton of control over that because you're probably sending your emails from a shared IP. But what you can do is make sure that you're using an email service provider who is not letting scammy, spammy people onto their platform. Because if you're on the same platform as people who are spamming, then those mailbox providers are going to associate you with those senders on that same IP address. So what you can do is look for your email service provider's acceptable use policy, and that will show you, like, excuse me, their standards for people who are allowed to use the platform. Finally, focus on good engagement. All those things we talked about before, I'm sorry again, are going to help you land on the inbox. When people are opening and clicking your emails, that's a sign to Gmail and Outlook and Yahoo Mail that you're a good sender. So the more you can get your customers to engage with what you're sending, the more likely you are going to land in the inbox.
Thanks, Casey, for all of these tips. What I love especially about these tips is that a lot of them overlap, like for SMS. So you don't have to remember a whole new set of rules or guidelines. Like, you know, you want to be valuable, you want to send just the right amount of messages, you know, not every day, unless that your business warrants that, but just being judicious about what you send and when you send it. So that's awesome. Now we're going to talk about how to collect numbers and email addresses. So if you're like, cool, I want to send, you know, I want to connect with my customers through SMS and email, or just one, but this is a way to collect both at the same time, or several ways actually. So the first, I love this example. I came across it in the wild from TBD Coffee Co. And I was browsing their site and I got this pop-up. I usually hate pop-ups, but this one told me right away why I should give my information to them. And I was interested in their products, so I entered my information. This is a great way to show, hey, we're going to give you value right away whenever we, when you give us your information. And they have the disclaimer here, which is required for SMS compliance. So they're checking all the boxes here. And so if you are a SimpleTexting customer, you have access to what's called web forms. If you haven't used web forms yet, you go to your apps tab. There's an app called Web Forms, aptly named, and you can create this form and embed it into your site. It'll give you a code that you can embed into your site. So here I've got phone number that's required, of course, because it's a texting platform, but I added email as well because I want to collect email from my audience as well. Here in this example, I didn't make it required, so I'm giving people that choice. Do you want to connect with me through SMS or SMS and email? So it also, going back to the compliance side of things, this includes the compliance terms and conditions where they check whether they agree to receive your messages. Just a great best practice for compliance. And then if you already have an email list, so if you're like, yeah, I have emails, people have given me permission to message them. I like this example because you can actually send a campaign to that list and say, hey, connect with us on SMS as well. So here we've got this example of what the text message might look like when they sign up for your list. They tell you right away what the value of this list is. So get first dibs on your favorites. In this case, it's seafood, which is limited in quantity. So you get first access to blue crab, essentially. And then it invites them to either text in a text in a keyword to their number to opt in, or they can click on the sign up link to opt in as well. And then again, if you're a Simple Texting customer, you can go to an app called Data Collection. In the Apps tab, Data Collection, you can create a prompt that when somebody opts into your list, when they're added to your list, it can collect a specific field. So in this case, I selected email. So I want to send a text message to ask, hey, reply with your email to get special tutorials and deals or whatever it is that you offer. And then it'll collect that information and append it to your contact data. So you'll have all that contact data within the platform. And just a good way, if you have an SMS list already, to ask people if they want to also engage with you through email. And as we talked about earlier, always, always, always get consent before you send anybody a text or an email. I have heard a lot from people, from small business owners, saying like, I have my customers' numbers already, so can I just like upload those and go ahead and start sending out like promotions and event invites and things like that. And we always, always, always recommend getting explicit consent. And we have a SMS compliance guide. If you go to SimpleTexting.com, there's a compliance guide in the resources that tell you everything you need to know, and then probably some more that you didn't even think you needed to know about compliance. And Casey, on the email side of things, is it pretty similar? Like you need to get that consent before you send messages?
Yeah, it is very similar. Explicit consent, which means they actively signed up and asked to receive your marketing emails. With transactional messages, it's a little bit more lenient. So if someone makes a purchase from you, they don't have to specifically opt in to get a order confirmation, for example, because that's implied consent. But it's still always good to try and get consent whenever you can. And using double opt-ins, I know, is a great best practice for both SMS and email as well.
And double opt-in is whenever you may have run into this before. If you sign up for an email list and it sends you an email saying, click this link to verify that you signed up for this. Because Casey, I was asking Casey earlier why that's a thing, and then he was saying somebody could sign somebody else up for a list, which is a horrible prank to play on somebody, depending on what the list is. So yeah.
Oh, this is the selly part. Just kidding. We want to let you guys know about MailJet. So if some of you guys aren't using email right now and want to give it a try, or if you've struggled with email before and maybe you just didn't have the right tool, we'd love it if you gave Cinch MailJet a try. So they've got a really easy to use email editor where you're just dragging and dropping stuff. There's a library of email templates you can use that are responsive, so they'll look great on mobile. There's a form builder that you can use to collect contacts, including collecting mobile numbers for building an SMS list. You'll get statistics for reporting on email performance, and there's also a free plan, limited features, but free plan available if you just want to give it a try and see how it works. Sorry. I think we'll also put in a link in the chat to the custom demo, and you can just play around with the email editor and see what it's like to build emails using MailJet. So we believe email is worth your time. Even if it's a struggle, it's a great channel to use to engage your customers. You can use it in a lot of different ways. Yeah,
and it's all part of the same family of brands, which is great. Simple Texting is owned by Cinch as well. So it's all the same quality that you're going to get. So we're going to look at what questions we have. I know Alfredo has been diligently answering as many questions as he can. Let me see on our Q&A tab. If you have any questions now, you can still drop them. There's still time to drop them in the Q&A tab. Let's see. So what about after they've purchased a product or service beyond the initial confirmation? Can you send them a follow-up SMS, MMS message with the option, of course, to opt out? It depends on you. Usually what we say is, when they're checking out or when they're signing up or however they interact with your business, give them a disclaimer to let them know how their information is going to be used. So are you going to send them promotional messages later? And in which case they'll need to check a box and say, yes, I would like that. Now, sometimes, if you have like Shopify or some other kind of platform, you may, it may send both. And it's a little tricky, but usually with transactional messages like confirmations or shipping notifications, that's okay. If they're expecting it, if they're like, I'm giving you my information because I want order updates, or I purchased something from you and I really want that thing and I want to know where it is, that's usually okay. But, we always say just better safe than sorry, truly. Let's see. Can you go into more details about embedding a text opt-in into a website? So there is, if you're a Simple Texting customer, if you go to apps, the apps tab, there's web forms, and there's an easy builder in there. You just fill out what information you want to collect, and then there's a generate code, and you can paste that into the back end of your site. Now that'll depend on what CMS or what content service that you're using to create your site, like Squarespace or WordPress. But and if you have any issues with that, you can use the chat in the bottom of your dashboard to talk to our customer success team, and they should be able to help you there with implementing it. All right, we've got, let me see, some great questions here, guys. I did see something earlier too. Thurston, I don't know if Thurston is still on, but he said all of this stuff is great, but when you're my age and we're raised with these tactics, you just ignore all these sales tactics and just delete the email or the message instantly. And I totally get that. I totally understand that. I think in this case, it depends on what you're sending, what you sell. So at the end of the day, what you don't want to do is buy a list or, somehow get a list of numbers or email addresses and just start sending things out. And I don't imagine anybody here is doing that. But if people are signing up for your list for a reason, maybe it's to keep in track of sales and deals and things like that, they'll open it when they're ready to engage with you. The whole thing is, what can you do to make sure you stand out in that inbox so that if they are ready for that purchase or they are ready to interact with you, they see you and you're top of mind. And they're not going to go and explore other options, essentially.
One thing I would add to that, Danny, is another very good practice for email sending is if you do have senders who are never opening and immediately deleting your emails, which is sometimes a metric you can see in your email marketing platform, those are people that you should remove from your list or quarantine from your list because they're just not doing you any favors. There's no reason to keep sending emails to them if they just delete and don't open your stuff. So if they subscribed and now they don't care, then you can take them off. You should just take them off your list. That's going to make your engagement levels higher, which makes you look like a better sender to those mailbox providers. So sometimes you have to, even though it's hard, you have to proactively unsubscribe people from your email lists.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's going to save you money, right? So That part's great. So so I see another question from Samantha. From a timeline perspective, if you were to send an email to customers, how long after would you recommend sending a text to them as well on the same topic? That, I know everybody hates this answer, but it depends. It depends on what you're sending. But what I would tell you is test it out. So you could start with maybe a day apart. So give somebody an opportunity to interact with your email and then send them a text message the next day. So like I mentioned earlier with an invite, like a event invite, you could send, hey, this is coming soon. Tomorrow registration is open. So get ready, opens at this time, get people excited. And then you can send them a text message and maybe even an email at the same time. But the text message is going to really grab their attention and get them to take action quickly, especially if you have limited spots. So you can then go in and look at your stats. Did people open the emails? If you had a link in your text messages, did they click on them? Are they engaging with these messages? Did they respond and reply? And then you'll know, okay, yeah, the timing seemed right, or people weren't even clicking on the link in the text message. Maybe things were too close together or something like that.
Hey, so there are a couple product questions about MailJet that I will try to answer. I'm not the biggest product expert, but one person was asking about dedicated IPs at MailJet. MailJet does offer dedicated IPs. You have to be a pretty high volume sender to apply for that, like 150,000 emails per month or more. We also Sinch also has the brand Mailgun. I saw someone bringing up SendGrid on here. If you're using SendGrid and you're looking for a different option, check out Mailgun. That's more of a direct competitor to like a SendGrid that offers options like that. MailJet is more for email marketing. Mailgun is more for triggered, automated, transactional emails and things like that. So keep that in mind, kind of to differentiate those two tools.
Mm-hmm. And we are, sorry, everyone, we're coming up on the last, the end of this. We might get pushed out in a minute. I don't know if it's going to, oh, I think it may have ended. We're in rehearsal mode. Okay. I didn't get to do the little end spiel, but that's okay.
Oh, darn it. I didn't know it was going to boot us out.
I didn't realize it was going to boot us out so soon either. Shoot. Oh, maybe they can hear us. Can you guys hear us? Okay, they can still hear us. Thank goodness. I thought it was going to kick us out afterward. I was like, well, that's it, I guess. Okay. Thank you guys for answering, bearing with us here. All right. I did see a question. We'll answer a few more questions. We're probably not going to get to all of them because there's some amazing questions here, and I don't know that we'll have time to answer all of them, but I did see one about, can Google, let's see, where was it? Oh yeah. Are you saying Google measures the numbers of Gmail users that actually opens my emails versus deleting without reading? And I was shocked by this when Casey and I were talking about emails and what, Google or Yahoo or other email providers, what they track. I didn't realize that they track opens and things like that to determine engagement with your emails.
Yeah, different platforms will give you different types of analytics. And it might depend on the plan that you purchase from your provider as well, how deep you can get into those analytics. But for example, with Email on Acids Analytics, that's another Sinch platform that you use for email quality assurance. It can show you what actual mailbox providers, what email clients people are using to open your emails, what devices are being used. It can show you if they have Apple Mail privacy protection turned on, if they're opening your emails in dark mode or light mode or things like that. So you can get pretty detailed with email analytics.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to need to wrap up here so that it doesn't officially kick us out. So we appreciate everyone's time. If we didn't get to your question, if it's related to a product, if it's related to MailJet or Simple Texting, you can go onto those sites, of course. And, if you're a Simple Texting customer, feel free to use the chat in your dashboard. You'll get connected with one of our customer support team members right away. And on the MailJet side, of course, you can reach out as well. And yeah, we appreciate everyone being here. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Casey.
Thanks for having me.